Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. Uh, my name is Leonard Brackett. I will be your chairman for tonight's Belizean Affairs program, being Friday night. Uh, we're now live on the Belizean Affairs show number 250. 250. We're grateful for the privilege to come to you tonight. And before I go into my formal programming, I just want to launch one other part of the program here, if you permit me 1 extra minute. I just want to make sure I launch this part. And I need to do this. Let's see. Unlock. And launch. Okay. So it's unlocked already. And it's launched. So I can get into the real meat of the program. Unfortunately, at this moment, we don't have our other panelists available. I presume in the next few minutes we might have Mr. Gregory Brackett available, but I'm not sure we'll have Mr. Roody Wade. He's in the field doing some work, doing some campaigning, and therefore he has notified me that he will not be available on time for tonight's show. But if he returns in with enough time to come on the show before it's finished, he will do so. So tentatively, we may have Mr. Roody Wade as well, but we can't count on that as being a reality. But nevertheless, we have a good program set up for tonight, and we hope that we may derive some public benefit from indulging or partaking thereof. It is for those who have followed our platform and our programs. I know you're probably accustomed to or used to the idea that we start our program with a prayer, after which we follow the reading of the Bible, scripture reading. I'll do the prayer, and because I don't have someone else currently available, I'll also end up probably doing the prayer myself. Let me just go ahead and close my eyes and start off with the prayer. Divine loving Father, as we come before thy presence once more, we pray that thou mayest continue to abide with us, guide us, give us strength, courage, perseverance, wisdom, knowledge and understanding, and the ability to be able to impart that wisdom and understanding to others. Specifically in regards to this program of the Belizean Affairs platform, we pray that thou mayest bless our undertaking or endeavor, that we may be successful at helping our people at home and abroad to learn and understand a little bit more about our Constitution before it gets changed and or eviscerated, so that they may be able to know what they would like to have in the Constitution, what they would like to take out, if we get to that milestone. Nevertheless, we wish to ask that thou would bless our family members and friends and loved ones wherever they are, as if they were each mentioned by name and number. Thou knowest our hearts, our desires, and even our most secret thoughts, loving Father. We pray that thou must bless our country of Belize, its people and its leadership. We pray that thou must bless this country of the United States, its people and its leadership as well, and that thou must bless the rest of humanity. Thou knowest those who are going through trials and tribulations. Thou knowest those who need food and clothes and shelter. Please provide for them as well. And as we undertake this program, may it be the benefit and well-being that some people may derive some public benefit from it. For we ask these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for the privilege to partake indulge in a prayerful moment. Nevertheless, let me see if I can get to. Let's see what I want to go to. I don't know where is that. Song of Solomon. Okay. I'll read from the book of Songs of Solomon. I will read chapter 5, verse 1. I am come into my garden, my sister, my spouse. I have gathered my myrrh with my spices. I have eaten my honeycomb with my eat. O friend, drink. You drink abundantly. Oh, beloved. That's a nice verse. Speaks to having something to eat, to nourish yourself on, and being willing to share with others. I guess that fits a little part of the prayer that I uttered a little earlier when I said, in my prayer that I'll ask that the good Lord would give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, health, strength, food. And I ask a blessing on those who have need of food and clothes and shelter as well. So I didn't choose that particular verse before to add. I just opened the Bible, went to that particular verse, and just read what was there in my sight. So coincidentally, I'm being given the privilege to read something that coincides with my prayer. I hope also that it will also coincide with part of what the program for tonight is, and that is tonight's program will be a review of part of the Constitution again. As you know, on Fridays, I usually do a constitutional program that is to deal with matters that relate to our country in regards to our national constitution, as well as case law and other matters, legal matters. As well as sometimes we do delve into other issues on Fridays, but we reserve Fridays for mostly constitutional issues because we have to persist with further elucidation or education of our Belizean people and at home and abroad as regards to what the Constitution says regarding specific matters that are of great importance to us. We see how our current government is supposed to be managing our affairs, that is to say, Belizean affairs. We elect them to exercise the powers of governance according to the Constitution, and we see that they behave in such a reckless manner and with such disregard or disdain or lack of concern for adequate implementation of our Constitution. They bastardize our Constitution on a regular basis. They go and make laws that do not comport with the constitutional requirements. They make bogus laws at that. Laws that they turn around and use against the populace and try to make the populace scoff laws by violating those illegal and unconstitutional laws that they make. That is that they don't have a problem making unconstitutional laws, even when the Constitution tells them how they can go about making legal changes and or adequate laws to govern the country. They behave as autocrats. They behave like there's no constitution which they actually swore fidelity to when they won the election and they went to the governor general for ascension of executive powers so that they could govern the country. But apparently, when they went to the Governor General for that ascension, that was to them just a gimmick or a game. It's just something that they had to do because it was required, but they had no true interest. They put their hands on the Bible and they swear allegiance to the country, they swear fidelity to the Constitution, and they swear that they will uphold the laws of the country, and they also swore allegiance to the head of state. Nevertheless, at this point, we can safely say their intent, based on their actions, and even some of what they have said before too. In fact, some of what they have written in documents purporting to have the power to vanquish the head of state. I don't know if they ever came across a word in the dictionary that says that says not treason, sedition. It's a small and a short spelled word, sedition. But I'm not too sure the way these people are behaving, as if they have any regards to the existence of that word, its meaning, and implications, and consequences for acting seditious in any society. Any society that anyone acts in a seditious manner, that individual is, in most instances, being vanquished from that society. In the olden days, when people used to run around half naked and, they're running around like well, they weren't civilized. Let's say it like that, in a more, in a nicer way. When people weren't civilized and they were running around half naked, even then, when members of the group or the society would contravene any of the rules or expectations of that society, they would be vanished away from the group. In the medieval era, what they would do with them is hang them. Or they send them up to some big towers and leave them there to rot or send them down into the dungeon and leave them there to rot for whatever period of time when they commit sedition against the king or the queen or whoever was in charge by wanting to overthrow the government and not doing it because there are legal ways and justifiable means and methods or ways how you can overthrow a government or change a government. In our modern society, we call it democracy. In fact, not only democracy exists here in our modern society, we have autocracy. We have a lot of different variations of how the governance system operates. We have communism, we have democracy, we have what they call it, kingdoms and and then we have a lot of different variations of ways how people govern themselves. In fact, today date as we're talking, and I'm making reference to modern society where people at least are clothed properly, or at least in our eyes what we consider to be proper, and behave in a certain kind of way what we think is adequate and appropriate. You have people that are living out in the boonies that don't wear that much clothes as we do. And then you have people who are in our society who want to exercise that same privilege to not wear any clothes whatsoever. I think I'm straying away from the focus of my presentation, but I was just prefacing those comments in order to say any constitution of a country amounts to the supreme law of that country. Sometimes where there's a king involved, the king have his individuals who work along with him and who takes notes of what he's saying when he says it, who records what he says to whom he says it. And as a result, what comes out of the king's head constitute then the law of the land. But in our modern society where we have, for example, democratic systems of governance, we elect people or we select people, and those individuals are accountable to us, the people who do that election or selection, to carry out governance on our behalf. And when they fail to do or carry out that governance on our behalf, that's an abrogation of their responsibility. And when you violate the rules or laws or expectations, there are consequences. But let me get into the specifics of as regards to the Belize Constitution that I want to deal with tonight, because as I said, we have been doing this series of lectures on the Belize Constitution. We have been doing that now going almost on 2 years, and we have not completed the full cycle, or at least one full cycle of making enough presentation that we would have covered the whole Constitution. But we're trying our best, because that is not the only thing that ails us and that we have to deal with our day-to-day existence as Belizeans per se. So without further commentary, let me just say that I'm going to go and read the Belize Constitution, Part 4, Belize Constitution Part 4, and Section 30, starting at Section 30. I'll read from Section 30, I think to 40, but I won't do it all in one continuous reading. I'll be reading bits and pieces and then make comments in between, or elucidate or amplify or expand on certain parts of it for additional clarity. Because as I do this series, and we have been doing this series now, like I said, for 200 and odd programs, 250 odd programs, 50 programs. Tonight is the 250th milestone. I have to constantly be conscious or aware of the fact that in our society we have people at many different levels of educational capabilities or standards or attainment. Some people, when I read these things or I try to explain these things, they say, well, I'm talking to them like if they're dumb or they're stupid or if they can't understand or don't know. And please forgive me, but I don't intend to offend nobody's intelligence when I make these presentations. But what I do and what I constantly have to be aware of is that, as I said just now, we are not all at the same station in life in terms of our educational attainment or capabilities. And therefore, when I specifically make any such presentation as these, I have a tendency to try and clarify as much as possible so that the widest possible spectrum of people can grasp the most possible of what is it I'm trying to convey. In other words, I'm not trying to leave nobody behind. I'm not trying to talk or speak over nobody's head or above nobody's level of competence. I'm always conscious that I'm not trying to speak to lawyers or legal-minded people alone, because I'm not trying to educate the educated. Our task on this particular platform is to inform the uninformed and or to provide further elucidation to those who have an interest in these matters, and who, in some instances, may not have a constitution at home, or may not have a constitution available to them, or may not have seen or read a constitution before, much less understanding what it's all about and how it relates in bits and pieces to their daily existence. That's our task. We have taken that on voluntarily, willingly, and we're doing it for free. We just, you know, want to do something worthwhile. And I hope that someone out there will derive some uh, positive public benefit from our undertaking. As I said, I'm working tonight by myself. Um, we're not sure if the other panelists will be coming in, but the show must go on. The Constitution of Belize, Part 4, Section 30, and it relates to the Governor General. Most Belizeans would be aware that our system of governance requires that we have a Governor General as part of our system of government. We are an independent country with conditions, and I'll explain that a little further. That is that, yes, we are independent, but we are independent within the Commonwealth. Uh, I'll just cease my comment for right now. I see one of our next panelists, or senior panelist and senior engineer of the show, is available to us. And I just want to break for a second to give him his opportunity to introduce himself. Greg, I yield to you, sir.
Good night, Mr. Chairman. Um, Good night to the people at home and abroad, and thank you for tuning in to this, our 250th episode of Belizean Affair. I thank you for tuning in to this, our Friday episode, which is a constitutional night. I go back to you, Mr. Chairman. Your volume was kind of low just now.
Uh,
Good,
part
I
of the
can hear you now, sir.
yeah, part of the reason was that I was doing the show without having put on my headset, no? And thank you very much for at least bringing me up to par with that notice, because I presume there may be other people listening to the show as they normally would do, and was probably wondering how come they weren't hearing me too well. I hope I can do a better job going forward now. Thank you very much. Uh, for I was just starting the my formal presentation of the lecture for tonight, the series, and I had explained to the public that I was gonna read part 4 of the Constitution, uh, section 30, and hopefully all the way to section 39 or even 40. But I was not going to read the whole thing all the way through, because as I read it, I will have to make certain comments and or elucidation or expansion or clarification. It deals with a subject matter that requires that type of input. Uh, the Constitution of Belize, as we currently have it, was written while the former head of state, which was Queen Elizabeth II, was still alive. And since then, it has not been modified to reflect the fact that we don't have her as the head of state anymore, but that we have her son, King Charles, as the head of state. So as I read, and then also it refers to, this section that I'm reading about refers to the Governor General, who we now know currently is a woman. We have had women Governor Generals before, and we have had men Governor Generals before. But yet, our Constitution, as it is right now, refers to him. So we cannot be referring to him in regards to Ms. Salam, who is our current Governor General. We have to say she or her or whoever. We got to reconfigure our speaking process or communication process. And where it's not properly done here in this version of the Constitution that I'm reading from, I will uh, interplay the variables in regards to when the Constitution is talking about his or him or whoever or whatever in that regards, as regards to the Governor General. I will take the liberty to say when the Constitution is reading his, I will say his and hers. But when it says him, I'll say him and her. In other words, I'll just try to make that communication as cogent as possible. Now, let me proceed then. I'll start reading about the Governor General's position or the office of the Governor General, how it comes about, and why is it that we have one. I start from section 30, and it reads as follows. There shall be a Governor General of Belize, who shall be a citizen of Belize, appointed by Her Majesty, or in this case, His Majesty, and shall hold, the Governor General shall hold office during Her Majesty's pleasure, in this case, His Majesty's pleasure, and who, the Governor General, being the who, shall be Her Majesty or His Majesty's representative in Belize. That is section 30, with the inclusion of the variants, as I said earlier, where I'm interjecting his and hers and that interplay. I'll go to section, uh, of course, section 30, as I read it just now, is a directive, okay? I'll read it all together without my interjection, okay? There shall be a Governor General of Belize, it's a command, who shall, another command, be a citizen of Belize, appointed by Her Majesty, and shall hold office during Her Majesty's pleasure, and who shall be Her Majesty's representative in Belize. The reason why that is so is because we have a head of state whom we did not elected. In other words, we're not a republic, or we're not a country where we elect our own head of state. We're a country that has its independence, as I said to you earlier. We have a conditional independence, and that conditional independence is because we have a head of state that is not elected by us. The head of state is the head of the Commonwealth, and we had our independence within the Commonwealth. And the reason for us having done that at the time we did that was because of the Guatemalan hegemony or threat that we had, and still as of today date, because it has not been resolved according to them. They refuse to accept the fact that we're an independent nation now 40 odd years, and they want to go back to the colonial criterias, not the colonial days, by the way, criterias, so that they could justify saying, okay, well, during the colonial days, Spain was the owner of Belize. The Belizeans were the occupant, but they occupied Spain's property. And since Spain gave Guatemala its independence, or acceded to the Guatemalan independence, the Guatemalans are stating, okay, well, what belonged to Spain before then belongs to them. Before Spain gave Guatemala its independence, Spain had no control over Belize. Guatemala knows that. But that's another discussion for another time. So I just wanted to contextualize in terms of what I read, section 30, because I'm going to go read 31 now. And why is it that we have a governor general? Why? Because we depended on the British. In other words, historically, Belize, before we asked the British to come and help in our defense, we were a country unto ourselves. We had our own constitution under the Barnaby Codes. We had our own system of governance. But because of the Guatemalans' um, jealousy and greed for wanting to take over our territory, we had to ask for help from somebody who could have kept us safe and has kept us safe from then until even up to the day that we are, because we got our independence under the Commonwealth as a defense guarantee. And by being under the Commonwealth, we subscribe to the idea that the head of state would be our protector in that regards. So there's a long history and other things that I would want to get into, but not for this particular presentation. And I need to go and read 31, after which I'll solicit uh, comments from my next panelist on the show, Mr. Gregory Brackett. I'll read 31. It says, Section 31 of the Constitution of Belize, subsection 1 reads, during any period when the office of Governor General is vacant, or the holder of that office of Governor General is absent from Belize, or is for any other reason unable to perform the functions of his or her office, those functions shall be performed by such person as Her Majesty may appoint. That is, if that person that is already appointed to fill those responsibilities is unavailable, then the king or the queen has the right or the power as head of state to appoint someone else to represent the head of state. So then we're not talking then about the Governor General per se, the original holder of the office. We are talking then about somebody else that is delegated to act in that Governor General's absence, because the affairs of the country has to go on. If one person is not available, they have to provide for a substitute, and that is what this is talking about. A deputy Governor General, in other words. Let me continue reading. Okay, I finished with that part. There's that's subsection 1. Subsection 2 says, any such person, as I just tried to clarify just now, being somebody who is different from the Governor General herself or himself or whoever, any such person as aforementioned or aforesaid shall not continue to perform the functions of the office of Governor General. That is, that the Deputy Governor General, when performing functions in the absence or unavailability of the Governor General, that deputy, if the holder of the office, the original Governor General, or some other person having a prior right to perform the functions of that office has notified him or her that he is or she is about to assume or resume these functions. In other words, there is a provision here for a Governor General who shall be a Belize. That's what we read in section 1, section 30. Let's go back to it again. So, hope I don't go and miss this stuff now. Holy Toledo. Oh, man. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I took too long. I was making commentary and I took too long on the stuff. It was trying to disappear from me. So I was reading section 33. Was that? Wait, just a minute. Just a minute. Nope, 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 nope. I was reading 30. I was at 30. I'm sorry. Please accept my apology. Okay, I read 30 and I was at 31, and I read subsection 1 of 31, and I read subsection 2. Greg, am I correct with that?
Yes, sir.
From what you can recall, I read 2, and then I was about to try and read 3, and I started commenting, and the whole thing just went haywire because I'm doing it off my phone, and it doesn't have a long time for the screen to stay live. The holder of the office of Governor General shall not, for these purposes of this section, be regarded as being absent from Belize or as unable to perform the functions of his or her office, as in the case of paragraph A below. I'm going to read paragraph A in case that by reason that he or she is in passage, that is to say, going in transit from one spot to the another spot, from one part of Belize to another part of Belize. So because the Governor General, whether it's a he or she, is traveling from one location to the next, doesn't mean that and they're not in the office. That does not mean that they're incapable of performing their functions. In other words, that's what that is referring to. And then you also have another paragraph that says paragraph B, and it says, at any time when there is a subsisting appointment of a deputy under section 33 of this constitution, it is in section 33 that the deputy governor general is spoken of and is uh, classified and clarified as to how that person assumes or gets assented that office or that power as deputy governor general. So we'll just skip over that, and before going to 32, I'll uh, yield to Mr. Greg Brackett, our next panelist, for any added comment that you want to contribute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, sir.
As explained by you, I will play a short video to show what is the role of the Governor Gen.
Thank you. Uh, Thank you very much, Greg. Could you comment a little bit on, or illustrate a little bit? There might be people or individuals who listen to the program who may not necessarily, um, or I'll say this, whom a little comment would facilitate or help them to digest what's being
Well,
presented
thank
and
you.
also add
Basically, what the tip is saying is the Governor General's rule is to make sure that she protects for the head of state and carry out the orders that is prescribed to her by the head of state, which is to make sure a country is held accountable under the head of state. That means they are not stepping out of bounds, they are not bastardizing the Constitution, they are not uh, making informal laws that is inconsistent with the Constitution, and most of all, there is no seditious activities to try to overthrow the crown. That is what the Governor General represents.
Thank you very much, sir. You have a further comment before I?
No, sir.
Okay. I'll just go ahead then, instead of my elaborating, because I'm hoping that we'll get to the end of these readings that I'm doing, and then I'll want to elaborate further then, no? As a part of our
Okay,
opening
go ahead,
session.
sir.
Um,
Mhm.
I'll go ahead and read section 30. I'll read section 32, which is just a single paragraph, and it says, a person appointed to hold the office of Governor General shall, before entering upon the duties of that office, they shall take and subscribe to the oath of allegiance and office. Uh, I will go to section 33, subsection 1, which reads as follows. Whenever the Governor General, as in the case of paragraph A, has occasion to be absent from the seat of government, but not from Belize, or, as in the case of paragraph B, has occasion to be absent from Belize for a period which he or she considers acting in his or in her own deliberate judgment will be of a short duration, or again another condition, as in the case of paragraph C, is suffering from an illness which he or she considers acting in his own deliberate judgment will be of a short duration, he or she, the Governor General, as regards to those paragraph A, B, and C that we just read. Of course, I don't expect that everybody will retain all of what I read there and be able to just keep it in the back of their head and contextualize it with the additional information that I'm going to continue reading, because I just got to go through the program. But we will touch those things again in a more simpler or easier way. Rather than using up a lot of words, we'll be able to just contextualize it, and so people can get a feeling or an understanding as to what is it all those words were referring to. So let me continue the reading, and it says, he or she may, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, appoint any person in Belize to be his or her deputy Governor General during such absences or illnesses, and in that capacity to perform on his or her behalf such of the functions of the office of Governor General as may be specified in the instrument by which he is appointed. In other words, a deputy Governor General does not have the leeway or the powers of the Governor General to exercise them willy nilly or uh, capriciously. You know, the Deputy Governor General can only exercise those powers that are assented to that Deputy Governor General in the documents of the appointment. for that temporary period of time that the Governor General is going to be absent or is ill, and if the Governor General is going to be absent for a longer period of time, they still have to specify to what extent then the Deputy Governor General can exercise the powers of the Governor General, because they cannot just arbitrarily and capriciously go and exercise any and every power, because some powers are still reserved to the original office holder, such as the power to get rid of the um, deputy for cause, as we are going to expose and explain to you guys on a future presentation, because we cannot present everything here. But I have the intent and hope that I will be able to explain to you why I'm bringing up this particular subject tonight, because it relates to some wrongs that were done by other deputy governor generals, and the original governor general did not bring to account that deputy governor general for the wrongs that they did. Okay, so believe me, there's a there's a logic and there's a rationale to what appear to be my madness. That is that I'm teaching this esoteric stuff or speaking to this esoteric stuff, most of which the average Belizean would not necessarily be cognizant of. And I have spoken and discussed and argued with some top lawyers in our country, and they hold a different perspective than what the Constitution stipulates. So for that reason, I'm led to believe that not only are the people who don't have a chance to own a constitution or to read it themselves, or who could go and borrow one from the library, but that even some of our legal minds propagate false concepts as regards to our constitution. And I believe that sometimes they are actually propagating those concepts in support of a particular agenda, rather than maybe the fact that they may not know. They probably know, but they're serving a cause. It's like lawyers, when you go to the court, they go to the court to defend their client, and they will haul and pull the system and hope that the judge can rule in their favor. No, the judge can't rule in all of their favor. Otherwise, what's the purpose of having a court? There's no right or no wrong. There's no winners, no losers. And sometimes the best lawyers lose to some lawyers that are not as highly qualified or as experienced than themselves. But let me not get into all those. I mean, I want to stay with the program. So I read that part just now, and it was basically trying to clarify as regards to the Deputy Governor General, the limits of powers that Deputy Governor General should be able to exercise. And as I'm saying, I'm indulging in this particular presentation because I want to point out something and bring to the attention of the general public something that I had brought to the general public before without the substantive constitutional reading citations, for people to have been able to, those who are interested in this type of stuff or want to know this type of stuff, for them to have been able to recognize where the authority or the rights or the constitutional stipulations were coming from when I was making reference to them. I'm doing this now so that people can go back and review on their own to see whether or not what is being said to them is so. Uh, so I'll skip that section and I'll go to subsection 2, and I'll read subsection 2 has. Greg, do you have a comment
Yes, sir.
in regards to what I just read there just now? Before I go to the this other part is going to be almost about the same thing, right? It's just
Thank
an
you.
expansion. Go ahead,
Thank
sir.
you,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
In regards to what you just said, I want the people to be aware of the PCC Act Section 5, number 22, is especially one that you are speaking about, where the present government through the PCC Act is trying to grab a hold of national security from the people,
Mm-hmm.
and the Governor Gen or the Deputy Governor Gen has no power because we have a head of state to give power to the present government. And I will
Greg,
read
could
it
you repeat that?
so
Greg, could you repeat that again? That little part right there where it says the governor general
again,
that
let
we
me
have
state
currently,
it.
and the deputy
The
governor
Governor
general does
Gen
not have
or
any
the
power.
Deputy
Explain that part
Governor
to the
Gen
public.
cannot
Attend
give
to. Uh-huh.
powers to the present government in the form of national security. The national security of a country lies in the hands of the
Head of state.
people,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
which carries that out through what is called a plebiscite
mm-hmm,
or a referendum.
mm-hmm.
And this is what is happening in the PCC Act. The
Greg,
present government.
Greg, um, uh, we're jumping ahead of a little part of the program, because that's we will be leading. What I'm doing here right now will be leading into that as part of our open discussion, as I mentioned earlier. No, I was just trying to set the
Okay,
stage
sir.
for all of that to come, right? But for people to be able to learn and understand enough of what they need to know, so that when we have our discussion and we put these things contextually, how it's supposed to be, and point out what the errors, omissions, oversights, and or transgressions are, we are we are believing then that some of the people, not all, by the way, will at least be in a position to recognize what is it
Okay,
we're talking about.
let me just rephrase it.
Uh-huh. No, what
I
you're
will
saying and how you're
rephrase
saying
it
it
to
is good.
say
I just wanted to
I will
repeat it.
rephrase it to say
Uh-huh.
this to the
Go ahead.
people. Okay? Using seditious activity
Mm-hmm.
by coming to you with constitution reform, the government, the present government is trying to use what we call carnal knowledge to grab a hold the powers of national security from the people of Belize. I go back to you, sir.
Yes, sir. And first, before they can get to do that, they need to eviscerate the authority and power vested in the head of state, so that then they can exercise those powers. But as you were saying earlier, which is the point that I was trying to get you to clarify, that the present governor general, which you correctly observed, and the deputy governor general has no power and authority to grant to the government any opportunity or privilege for the government then to use the powers granted by them by the governor general or deputy to commit sedition and eviscerate and get rid of the head of state, which is the point that I was trying to get you to, lock into exactly,
Yes, that
because
is true,
that's where
sir.
I was going.
And you can tell because if you listen to the present government or its ministers, right? The prime minister or the ministers elected by the people who carries national security, you always hear them speak of Belize as a sovereign, independent country, which is not true. They are saying this to mislead the people, and they keep repeating the narrative. We are a sovereign nation, when in reality, we have a bipartial independence that was done under the
The,
Commonwealth.
the technical phrase is conditional independence, sir.
That is correct. And all the time we hear them say it, sovereign independence, which is a total lie. It's a narrative they push to try to lead the people into becoming sovereign citizens
Well,
against the crown.
and
And
act
they
on their
go
behalf.
beyond that. They go beyond that.
Mm-hmm,
You hear them speaking about repatriation,
mm-hmm.
trying to tell the people, well, those are our
Greg,
slave masters, so
Greg,
we need to get away from them. We need
Uh,
a new identity.
did
Not
we need
telling
do
the
we need that
people
for
the
the
truth.
commentary part? I just want to finish up the reading,
Right, go
and
ahead,
because
sir.
we need to actually have a wide open discussion, because this thing is coming to a head about this constitutional um, reform commission process, and that's what I'm heading into. But I'd like to be able to have the people along with us knowledgeable enough about what is it that we're talking to them about, because only the people will be able to save the people from what these gangsters are trying to do. And if the people don't know that they are being hoodwinked, then they could fall as a victim. Anyhow, what we got? 56. Wow, time is gone. Okay, let me speed up with this reading then, please. Okay, I'll read subsection 2 of section, I think it was 33. Let me double check again. That's what I think I was doing. Yeah, section 33 of the Constitution of Belize. I'm going to read subsection 2. It says, the power and authority of the Governor General shall not be abridged, altered, or in any way affected by the announcement of a deputy or appointment of a deputy under this section. That is to say, the deputy does not have and cannot exercise any more power than what governor, the governor general authorized to the deputy. So the deputy can one day wake up and say, you know what? To hell with the governor general. I will just sign something in that governor general's name, give it to because then, okay, the current deputy governor general, for the public to be aware of what is it I was about to say just now preemptively, is that deputy governor general is one and the same person as the secretary of cabinet, which ought not to be. That's a violation in so many different ways, because the deputy governor general should not be signing anything on behalf of cabinet when he is also a member of cabinet, serving as a subservient in cabinet as the cabinet secretary to the prime minister and the other ministers. That's backward. But conveniently, the prime minister set it up like that because then he have the ears of the deputy governor general who he can lean on while in cabinet under his auspices, to have that deputy governor general transgress the authority vested in that deputy governor general by the governor general, and try to have that deputy governor general be the linchpin that causes the evisceration or the changeover from our present system of government under the common as a member of the Commonwealth, for them to take us from under the Commonwealth and eviscerate the authority vested in the head of state, and to vest that authority in themselves. In other words, they're trying to get the people in the country as sovereign citizens to act on their behalf against the present head of state. In other words, to use the people to, as a battering ram to dispense to the present head of state. And so they tell us that the present head of state is a part of the family that had us all in slavery, and then they go back and concoct and spill a lot of diatribe that they really don't know nothing about or the history of. And the younger generation take it as Bible because they don't know any better either. But again, I'm jumping the gun. I need to read this thing. So please just bear with me. The power and authority of the Governor General shall not be abridged, altered, and or in any way affected by the appointment of a deputy under this section, and subject to the provisions of this Constitution, a deputy shall conform to and observe all instructions that the Governor General, acting in his or her own capacity, or undeliberate judgment may, from time to time, address to him or her. Basically, what it's saying there is that the Governor General, as I stipulated in the earlier readings, is superior to the Deputy Governor General. And the Deputy Governor General can only act based on the information that the original holder of that position as the Governor General authorized the Deputy to act. In other words, the Deputy Governor General has no authority or ability to act in his own merits without being assented the powers to be able to act in the name of the Governor General, who then is acting in the name of the head of state. Now, when we start elect, we want a head of state, which is where this present UP government and even the UDP government is trying to get us to be, is when they will have the authority and they are not going to be accountable to no head of state, no other head of state other than the one that we elect, but that they exercise the powers even against us if they so choose, because then once that power is transferred in the hands of the head of state, then the head of state has the right, absolute right, to exercise it at will. But we don't get there yet. Let's finish the other part of the reading here quickly, and then we could comment. Um, Provided that the question whether or not a deputy has conformed to uh, provided that the question whether or not a deputy has conformed to and observed any such instructions shall not be questioned into shall not be questioned into by any court of law. That is, in other words, it is the prerogative of the Governor General to instruct his or her deputy as to what he or she wants that deputy to do. And once that instruction is given to that deputy, it is not for any court or any other authority outside of that Governor General's purview and authority to question whether or not that deputy conforms to the instructions that the Governor General gave. Because it is then the purview of the Governor General to, as I stipulated earlier in my comments, decide if that deputy transgressed and or stepped over bounds or did something wrong, and that Governor General then has the right to, in the authority of the head of state, to dispatch that Deputy Governor General and appoint another one or recommend another one for appointment. But the bottom line is that I'm coming back to that because I'm saying there are things that had happened that should not have happened, and we are where we are. But unless we reject or address those malfunctions of the system, we are going to all be taken for a ride, and sooner or later we end up with a Republic of Belize. God forbid. Especially with the lack of accountability of these, individuals that we have currently as leaders of our country, both in the two mass parties, of which one of them will be going in the country until we could get a change of system. But Greg, having read those two paragraphs just now, I don't want to read too much before getting a comment, so that we don't lose in the translation or elucidation process some of the material that is being covered here, no? That the more we put out there without commenting on adequately enough, then people can just fall asleep, and it's not going to be germane to some, no? So the further elucidation and commentary is very useful, and so I'm going to yield to for your comments and input in regards to what I just read.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In regards to the authority of the Governor General and the Deputy Governor General, right?
Well, as representative of the head of state, the governor general has a task in front of her
Mm-hmm.
because she's not only representing the head of state, She's the head for election and boundaries. She's also the head to make sure that the political parties can work together to make sure that the country has a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
She should be the one that should step in. For instance, with this redistricting, we haven't heard from her. And also, I tend to believe that there is never any announcement to say if she's sick or she have left the country, but yet we find that
The deputy.
majority of the bills that are passing to laws, especially SIs, are
Mm-hmm.
signed by the Deputy Governor General, Mr. Stuart Leslie. So it make one wonders as to what role she's playing because you see her sometimes and you never heard from her. You know, it amazed me. But I was saying, national security is in the hands of the people, and the present government is trying to wrestle that away from the people.
Mm-hmm.
That is why they are so bound and trying to reform the Constitution or rewrite the Constitution because their ideals is not to have a parliamentary constitution which protect your rights. Is to change Belize into a republic.
Thank you very
I
much,
go
sir.
back to you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Very, very well said and very elucidating, Greg. I hope people who are listening to our program tonight and those who will be listening afterwards on their own time, every once in a while you're listening to the program on their own time, pause the program, think about what is being said to them, digest it more adequately or more appropriately than they will be able to do right now as the program is live, and even go back and do a little research because there are people who deal with some of these things who are interested in these things, but they're not fully up to par. And what we're saying may spur them to do further research or studies or inquiry. No? Let me then proceed to read subsection 3 of section 33. A person appointed as Deputy Governor General under this section of the Constitution shall hold appointment for such period as may be specified in the instrument which he is appointed. In other words, as I keep saying, the Deputy Governor General, in his own rights, has no power and authority to do anything that the original Governor General does not assign to him in an instrument. In other words, the deputy just can't get up and willy nilly one day say, well, you know what? I'm also a member of cabinet. I sit in cabinet as the secretary to cabinet, and as a favor to the prime minister and the members of cabinet, I'm just going to go ahead without the acquiescence or agreement of the original governor general. In my own capacity as deputy, I will assent to something so that they could get rid of the head of state position, including the governor general. That's sedition. That's a bastardization of our constitution, as our constitution does not contemplate that to be ethical, moral, or constitutional. But let me leave that. Let me just finish that particular reading. I need to move this stuff down. Oh, this stuff here is in my way. Just need to move something. Hope I can lose the whole material. Okay, so I'll reread that little part there. It says, a person appointed as Deputy Governor General as in the case of Mr. Stuart Lester, or current Deputy Governor General, under this section of the Constitution, shall hold that appointment for such period as may be specified in the instrument by which he is appointed, and his appointment may be revoked at any time by the Governor General acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister. That is the totality of Section 33 so far, and we'll come back to that because, like I said, in our detailed discussion, which I need to start formalizing or getting into, we'll be dealing with some of these same matters, and I'm trying to get to the point where I can show that these things that are not supposed to be transgressed are being transgressed currently in our system in Belize, deliberately too, not by omission or oversight. As Greg always have the penchant to say, as part of a designer system, they know what they're doing, and they're trying to get it done, but they don't know all of what they really need to do in order to get the whole thing done. So then, bafu and gama, right? And I'm quite certain that there are other people out there beside myself who could tell them how to get it done. But I will not volunteer that information, and I hope that nobody else volunteer it who is capable of dissecting these matters and bring it to their attention as to what they need to do to perfect what they're trying to do. Because what they're trying to do amount to no good on behalf of my country. Let me cease to... Greg, you had a comment just now on this particular part here that I read, section 3, I mean section 33, subsection 3? Or you want to wait, since I'm almost at the point where I might want...
Yes, I will wait, sir.
We're running out of time for the program, so we might have to go back to... Unless I could... You know what? Let me read some of this thing here, because we will need it as part of our discussion. Let me see if I can just quickly... okay. I'll go to 34, section 34 of the Constitution of Belize. Subsection 1 reads as follows. In the exercise of his functions, that is to say, the Governor General shall, not may, shall act in accordance with the advice of the Cabinet or a minister acting under general authority of the Cabinet, except in cases where he or she, as Governor General, is required by this Constitution or any other law to act in accordance with the advice of with the advice or after consultation with any person or authority other than the Cabinet, or in his own deliberate judgment. One, two, three, four, five. Those 5 words right there, in his, and I'll add another one, hers, because in this case we have a female as Governor General. So these 6 words, in his, 7 words, in his or her own deliberate judgment. Does anybody recognize the seriousness of that statement? The last word specifically, the last 2 words. Deliberate judgment. That is to say, the deliberate judgment of the Governor General. In other words, the Governor General can use their own deliberate judgment to override just about any and everything else that preceded what was said there just now. And I'll show you again where the Governor General is not a figurehead, as some people like to propagate, where the same phrase comes in over and over in some of what we are supposed to be reading. Because I need to get the point across that the Governor General is not a figurehead as is being propagated for mischievous reasons, right? That people propagate that kind of stuff. That is to say that the Governor General no got no say or power or authority, and the cabinet can have its way, have its say, and have its way. Because according to some people, cabinet and the prime minister has more power or should be able to exercise more power than the governors general or the head of state. And that is only when the prime minister gets elected as president of the future possible Republic of Belize, when that will be able to be countenanced and or be tolerated or put up with. But
In reality,
go right ahead,
sir,
go ahead.
in reality, the only section of government that has more power than the governor gen is the judiciary, which is the high court that settle all dispute and all laws. Belize is run by a constitution,
Mm-hmm.
and the power of laws lies in our constitution. The High Court is there for judicial review to intervene whenever one's fundamental right is stepped on, as in the case of Mr. Feinstein, which is an unconstitutional move by that judge who ruled in favor of the government. But I will say this, I
Greg,
believe that was done.
Greg, could we
I
postpone
believe
that?
that.
Could we
Hmm?
postpone? I know you, you'd like to be able to grab it now that we have it hot, right? Like a hot potato.
Right.
But could we?
But I believe
Okay, go
that
ahead.
was
Finish the
done for
statement. Finish the
said.
statement.
I believe that was done, sir, and I'm specifically stating this to show how our country is not being run by our constitution when we speak about
Mm-hmm.
democracy, because there's no separation of powers.
Mm-hmm.
We are living in a country that is run by executive powers. And that is why I believe this ruling took place, because it will give the government a chance to finish the acquisition. There will be
You're setting a
an
bad precedence,
appeal,
though.
and even if Mr. Feinstein win the appeal, what will happen? They
It's
will
already a
pay
done
him
deal.
off. They will pay him off. They will lose the appeal, pay him off, but what they wanted still happened. The
Yeah.
private company still end up with
Thank you
the.
very much, Greg. We could get into elucidating more on that because I have a concern about that same issue in regards to them setting a precedence that's going to come back and bite us
It's a
because
temporary
we
precedent
well
because an
well
appeal is pending.
yes, but even without that, we have stare decisis law currently that forbids them
Exactly.
to do that.
I have
As
been
in
playing
regards to
them.
the BTL case that went all the way to the
I
or
have been
four.
showing international
But
law,
Greg,
Mr. Chairman,
uh-huh,
and these matter.
but I didn't want to
Go ahead, though,
segue
sir.
into that yet, because we are
Hmm.
not up full blow when we go after it. You know, I just want to close this off quickly here, because I need to get to the point where this issue of his or her own deliberate judgment is informed to the people of Belize. They need to understand what those words mean, and where it says where the prime minister has to give account to the governor general on any matter that the governor general has a query into or is interested in knowing more about. Of course, the present governor general does not seem to recognize the level of power that she's vested with, and as a result, things that people are having to fight the government with or about as regards to this Section 90 issue, she's not stepping to the plate. That matter is in her purview in terms of making sure she is the only person that can bring accountability to the government, query about it, and demand that it gets rectified. The prime minister should not be able to stand up in public and tell the rest of the country to hell with UNO because I want to do what I want anyhow. And I'm not about to do what the Constitution commands me to do. I want to just do what I want. No, the Governor General have the power and authority to be able to smack his butt down and get him to comply, or just what I call it, take away the position from him and award it to somebody else. Most people don't realize that level of power exists in the Constitution and in the hands of the Governor General. It would become a constitutional crisis, but the Constitution speaks to it in clarity as day and night. But that will cause a segue. I need to finish the thing now, and trying to run on. We get close to finishing time, and we still need to do the general commentary. So, okay, I did 3 already. I just read 3, right? Yeah, I just read. Okay, let me read 4, and quickly get out of this. It said, where by this Constitution, the Governor General is required to perform any function in accordance with the advice of or after consultation with any person or authority. The question whether the Governor General has so exercised that function shall not be inquired into by any court of law. So that particular matter or issue cannot be taken to a court of law for redress, because the Governor General has the final say in that regard, whatever that matter is. We're not going to get into details on those. 35, Section 35 reads as follows. The Prime Minister shall keep the Governor General fully informed concerning the general conduct of the government of Belize, and shall, not may, shall furnish the Governor General with such information as he or she as Governor General may request with respect to any particular matter relating to the government of Belize. And that's the end of that part. It ends at part 35. Section 35. And that's the presentation for tonight as regards to matters read from the Constitution. Greg, do you want to take a minute and make a general comment before we do the opening? I got to run.
While you're gone, I want to play this tape.
Hello everyone, I am Anuj Nakade and you're watching Live Law. Live Law is an online legal news portal that brings you news from courts all across the country. In order to stay updated, please subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we will be discussing what is widely considered one of the most important cases and precedents in the history of independent India. It is very definitely the longest case proceeding to ever happen in any case in the country. The case was heard by the Supreme Court for a total of 68 days and the judgment in it was delivered on 24th of April 1973. Exactly 50 years ago today on this date. The importance and impact of this judgment is so clear that the Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, announced a webpage dedicated to the judgment that would help researchers across the world to learn more about it. Hence, we at Live Law thought it would be good to bring you a detailed understanding of the case because it is a turning point in history that defines us today. Many of our regular viewers may know that when we usually report on a story, we are very specific about the number of judges pronouncing the judgment. The reason for this is twofold. The first is because the Supreme Court is a court of record, which means that every judgment of the Supreme Court that interprets the Constitution is the law of the land. Any case that is similar to that case or has the application of principles mentioned in the case will be similar in the future. Second, because the number of judges that are hearing the case will determine the strength of a judgment. For example, A judgment by a 5-judge bench will be binding on a 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court. The Keshavananda Bharti case is a judgment passed after a 13-judge bench heard it, the largest ever to be comprised in the Supreme Court of India. So what was the issue and why did it need to be heard by 13 judges for 68 days? The answer is a little bit of a history lesson. After independence, since our country had a feudal system, large parcels of land were owned by a few people. The Kerala Land Reforms Act of 1963 was a progressive legislation which restricted the area of land which one can own. Based on the Kerala Land Reforms Act, the government took over the land of such big land owners for the purposes of distribution to the landless people. In other words, the tillers of the land were made the owners of the land. One Edenir Mutt, at the time headed by Swami Keshavananda Bharti, owned one such large area of land and their land was to be taken away under the Land Reforms Act. So, Keshavananda Bharti, a priest and the head of the Edenir Mutt, challenged the constitutionality of the Kerala Land Reforms Act, saying the right to property is a fundamental right and the government cannot take away his property. He also challenged this decision of the government on the basis that the Land Reforms Act infringed on his fundamental right to equality, the right to life, and the right to manage religious affairs. But the issue was slightly more complicated than that. You see, the power to take away the land under these Land Reform Acts was protected by constitutional amendments. The 24th, the 25th, and the 29th Constitutional Amendment to be exact. In our Constitution, Article 368 gives power to the Parliament to amend the Constitution. So for Swami Keshavananda Bharti to succeed in the court, he would have to challenge all 3 of these amendments to the Constitution. Then the question arose, what can be the limitation or what is the extent that these power to amend the Constitution can be exercised by the Parliament? Can the Constitution be amended completely by exercising this power by the Parliament? Before going further, we should get to know these amendments. To start with,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I stopped
Thank you
the
very
tape
much.
there because this will be part of Monday night presentation. But I play that first part
It's good.
to let the people at home and abroad know this is what is happening in our Constitution under Section 69(9) that should have been taken out completely. And
Um,
now the present government is using that.
Pretending like they don't know. Sorry, but um, that is what we're going to go into. If I had any extra time left on tonight's presentation, that is exactly what I was going to segue into. But uh, okay, so you played it, and we're going to use it for Monday night. But we have played it before on a few other occasions, and the more we play it, the more people will be able to have an opportunity to recognize it, understand it, and make it sink in, right?
Mhm.
So thank you for filling in the time just now that I was gone. But I still have for us to discuss why is it that I did all that legal reading from the Constitution and contextualize it. And you play that stuff, and like you say, you're going to play it again on Monday. So I don't know that we have time left to make when we go into it, because I really want to get into that too, right? Because
We can continue on this on Monday night.
okay, so then let's because we're at the ending of tonight's program,
Right.
basically we're within 30 seconds of it, and maybe we should just add another 5 minutes for us to um, comment on these things that I read or to elucidate on it. Um, Part of the reason why I presented this program tonight is because a lot of people have this impression that all our past governors general, including the present one, are just a figurehead. They don't have nothing to do with the state or with the country, other than just act in ceremonial positions or circumstances, and that's the end of their authority or power vested in them. People forget to remember that it is the governor general that we ministers then have to go and get assent of powers to get executive authority to run the country, because it is through the Governor General that the executive power, which is vested in the head of state, is transferred to those who win the general elections. For them to then become minister and they get sworn in as minister, the prime minister gets sworn in front of the Governor General and get his ascension of power as prime minister, to then go and act in the capacity as prime minister on behalf of the country. But then, as I just read, the prime minister, let me read it stuff, okay? The prime minister shall, not may, shall keep the governor general fully informed concerning the general conduct of the government of Belize, and shall furnish the governor general with such information as he or she, as governor general, may request with respect to any particular matter relating to the government of Belize. So then why shouldn't we be able to send a letter to the Governor General and ask the Governor General to look into the fact that the Prime Minister is telling us that he is going to violate the Constitution and not allow the redivisioning? We have that right and authority vested in us. But people don't understand and know those kind of intricacies. Now, while that is a plausible scenario, I'm going to say right here and now, tonight, right? I'm not denigrating or downplaying the Governor General powers or authority or persona or whatever, or bringing disrepute onto her. I'm explaining and teaching so the Belizean people can know what the limits of her power is, to the extent that she can exercise some of those powers to see to it that government operates correctly. But I don't think it will ever happen. Why? The Governor General is someone who the Prime Minister appointed. And that appointment comes with, well, he came with a higher salary. He came with, many other things. But it didn't come with the most important thing. That is that the Governor General should not have to depend on the Attorney General, who is a member of cabinet, to go and bamboozle the Governor General into signing and assenting to things that are contrary to the best interests of the country. The Governor General, according to what I just read here under Section 35, should have the right and the power and the authority to query and get response. But the jackals that we have running our country, they want to act as autocrats and pretend that, well, after the Governor General has sent the powers to them, they could care less whether the Governor General, whether he sleep, eat, is alive, or whatever is happening. They just take that power and they run on, and they don't manage the country on our behalf, but instead they turn around and make laws, to turn us all into scofflaws. Why? Because we can't fight back the government. The government have a deep pocket, as these citizens were trying to do, to fight the government to get them to comply with the Section 90. That issue is under the control of the Governor General. So if the Governor General is properly appraised and wants to do something about it, she has the power and the authority to do something about it. That's my point in terms of my commentary. Greg, I read a lot of stuff, no? So, it could take another 5 minutes and expand on it, see it to your heart content, brother.
Well, you have stated it all, sir. And as I said on Monday, I will do a more formal presentation where we can have this discussion using videos, because here in Belizean Affairs, as you know, we show and tell. But I want to put it formally so that people can see exactly what I am speaking about. Because, as I mentioned earlier, the present government and past government is misleading the people to believe as though we are a sovereign, independent nation. And I need to remind them that any sovereign nation that are independent do not have a head of state. That's number one.
Wait. They do have a head of state, but it's an elected head of state. or somebody that
That is
has the authority
correct.
locally. They don't have any external powers that have jurisdiction over them.
That
That's the
is
difference.
correct, sir.
Yes, sir.
And first of all, in the case of Belize, um, independence, it was given to us under the Commonwealth because, and I have said this on more than one occasion, a country cannot give another country its independence unless it has an army and a flotilla to protect its territory. So when I say these people, you only have to look at the scenario and say Guatemala. Then you will know why our independence was under the Commonwealth. Mr. Chairman, you know quite well about that.
I
I
was
go
there,
back
part
to
of
you,
it. I
sir.
was, yeah, thank you very much, sir. Well, you're 100% correct that I know all about that because I was there as part of the process that resulted in Mr. Price making that first agreement with us that he will become the first leader to take the country into independence in exchange for that independence to be taken under the Commonwealth. It was a bargain that he had to accept, or we would not have gotten independence at the time when we got it. It would have been delayed because we needed to make sure that we're not going to become an independent papa dependent on Guatemala or any other Central American country who were all at the time favorable to Guatemala. That our
The, the,
independence, go ahead, go ahead,
the
go
whole
ahead.
scenario, sir, is a political narrative and blunder,
Mm-hmm. Correct.
misleading the people by deception. Everything they say, sovereign country. And if you tell the people that, you are telling the people because you are sovereign, oh, we can change our constitution, we can take the queen head off the money, you can do most anything. But you're not telling the people, you're misleading them, you are committing sedition, and
Mm-hmm.
you are turning them into sovereign citizens against the head of state. This is what has been happening because we have heard it on more than one occasion. But what I want to say to the people at home and abroad, because our government took us down this path, this is why we are having this border dispute with Guatemala, as any Belizean would know. When we were backed by the British, never one time in history have you ever heard Guatemala that boldly step in our territory. Again, I can repeat it, never one time did you ever heard Guatemala violating our sovereign country as they are doing right now. So you, the people at home and abroad, must think clearly in which direction you want this present government to take this country. Because what they are after is to achieve the agenda of the late Right Honorable Judge Cadle Price, who wanted Belize independence
Without
without
guarantee.
protection. I turn it back to you for the closing, sir.
That was the closing, sir. I'll let your words stand as the closing for tonight since we're beyond our time. You can close us out in the next few seconds with a short
I
song if you don't
thank you,
mind.
sir. With that said, people at home and abroad, we have come to the end of our
Oh,
show
oh, oh,
for
oh,
tonight.
Greg, can I interrupt you for a second, sir? I just want to say
Go
that
ahead, sir.
for tonight's show milestone at our 250th 250 milestone landmark milestone, I would say, uh, we had three people that we chose to give a stipend to, and those three individuals turned out to be one, Mr. Gregory Brackett, as being one of our greatest supporter and panelists enabler to our program. And our next uh, panelist, Mr. Roody Wade, was the recipient of was one of the other recipients. And a final uh, last minute thing that we showed there, a small token to the most consistent person that has been dealing with our program from the beginning, from program number one and all the way through program number 250. And that individual happened to have been Miss Rubina Forte. So take it away, sir.
Thank you. With that said, good night to the people at home and abroad.